Hey there, we're back. If we haven't met before, my name is Candice Hilse, and I'm in South Carolina, and I have a passion for just connecting with people who are faith forward leaders and the exploration of right, wrong, the best case and the worst case scenarios, and how we connect and support each other and just pushing through to growth. Today, I'm really excited to bring you an interview with Candice Hudnall. Candice's storied career began at the White House, and she served as an intern early in her life. And this is after a life of just growing up kind of worldwide and experiencing all different cultures and people. And going into the White House, she assisted in presidential events, staff, and other leadership in the Office of Presidential Advance. And then she graduated from Clemson, got her MBA in the Citadel's MBA program, and Candace's business, event, and hospitality acumen quickly transitioned her from Hamby Catering's marketing director to managing director over the course of her first 6 years with the company. In 2017, she stepped into the role of president for the company and became the majority owner of Hamby Catering. The cool part about her story is Hamby at the time was very much a legacy brand, well known in the Charleston area. So to take that over and run that and build it to success is just a really fascinating story and an interesting walk. The cooler part about it is because was so family oriented when she took over, she brought her father, Wayne Culbertson, in as COO. And they're now the second set of multi-generational family owners for the company. During her time at Hamby, she's been named in the city's 40 Under 40 list in 2017, Leadership Charleston's class in 2019, and most recently as one of 2024 Women in Business honoree. Under her leadership, she's also seen the company be named Charleston's top choice caterer for 8 years in a row, Shift Now's 2023 top 23 places to work, and oversaw the company's opening of its flagship venue, the Rutledge Room, in the fall of 2023. Earlier in 2024, City of Charleston Mayor William Cogswell declared August 4th as Hamby Catering and Events Day as a commemoration of the company's 45th year in business, and Hamby also recently accepted the invitation to join an elite group called Leading Caterers of America. She's lived everywhere, she's experienced so much, and it was no small undertaking to turn a family legacy brand into a new and renewed family legacy brand with new ownership, and they have done that with just such excellence. So I'm excited to talk to her, and I hope you'll join us now. Candice, thanks so much for joining me today to chat. I'm so excited to catch up. We could probably talk for hours because it's been a while, but I'm just so excited for you to share your story and what God does through you and your leadership. And also, you've had a really cool business journey and the story of Hamby and everything. I'm excited for you to share. So can you tell us a little bit about your personal story? Like, did you always want to be in entrepreneurship? How did you end up here?
Gosh, much like your journey, I feel like owning Hamby Catering is really by accident. And I look in the rearview mirror and I'm like, how did I even get here?
So great.
So, my background, having gone to school at Clemson, is the foundation is communications.
Before you go any further,
yeah,
I need to say go Cox because we are a week removed from a beautiful football game.
It's y'all deserve to win this year, and I think that the Gamecocks need to get a win every once in a while to keep the alive.
All right. But we're moving on. It was just too great. I couldn't pass it up.
Good one. I grew up with a father that was part of Michelin for 42 years. So a very corporate job. And ironically, my parents both went to Clemson as well. And the only subject that Dad failed in school was French because he thought, what is a country boy from Easley, South Carolina going to need to know how to speak French for.
This is so great. I did not know this story.
So, I mean, that's logic right there. So after he graduated from Clemson, Michelin had just founded its North American headquarters in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And Dad said, oh, I guess I'll take a chance on this unknown company called Michelin. And very shortly after accepting the job, they sent him to Clermont-Ferrand, France. And he was like, okay, I guess I'm going to need to learn how to speak French. So joke was on him with the country boy from Easley, South Carolina, needing to learn French. So, you know, I've told this story before, and really when I dig back into how I was raised and my childhood and upbringing, my path to hospitality and service is rooted in my dad's career with Michelin. And that first international move for him, it was actually before he and Mom were married. They're getting ready to celebrate 50 years of marriage, which is exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's rare these days. But
yeah,
he moved to Clermont-Ferrand, France. Mom joined him shortly thereafter, and that was the first of 8 international moves for them.
Wow.
We always came back to Easley. I was part of 3 of those international moves. And just so Michelin is obviously a tire company, but they are also very rooted in hospitality.
Yeah.
Through their maps and their travel guides and the Michelin stars for restaurants, and now Michelin keys for hotels.
Yeah.
So I grew up from a very young age hearing about the Michelin stars for restaurants. And, you know, at that point, we didn't have the money to go to a starred restaurant, but there was also Bib Gourmand, which means it's a good value restaurant that Michelin has rated. And so, you know, that was kind of the holy grail for dining. And I remember going to different restaurants with my parents as a child and just watching how the service team made people feel at home and, you know, served their bellies, but also their hearts, and just the connections that happen when you're sharing a meal and breaking bread together.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. And I fell in love, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I fell in love with hospitality and service then.
That's funny to hear you say that, because I mean, especially now that my husband and I are in our 40s, when we go out to eat, like, it doesn't happen as often with all the kids, right? So when you go, you're like pickier and pickier about the places being places that feel comfortable. Yes. And where they're really attentive. And there's a particular steakhouse in town that, of course, just excels at that. And it really is where we go every time. And I want to be adventurous and crazy, but I'm like, I know I'm not going to be mad at the end of the night.
I know. You know, it's about, so there's one side where it's like a comfort situation where you know that you're going to have this amazing experience, but then, you know, dining is also an adventure, especially go to some of the starred restaurants, which I've had the opportunity to go to as I got older. And, you know, even now as my husband and I love to, you know, have dining adventures. And it's an education to go to some of these restaurants and see, like, oh, my gosh, I can't even imagine doing that with a potato.
Yeah.
But, you know, it really is art. Food is art. And it can be as beautiful visually as it is delicious to eat. So that's really my foundation in hospitality.
Wow.
And that led me to being the owner of Hamby Catering.
So I have to say, if you're listening and you're not familiar with Charleston and the Charleston market, food in Charleston is extremely important. but also extremely competitive. It is hard if you live in Charleston to go out to dinner on vacation in any metro anywhere else in the world. And
so true.
And walk out like super wowed because we are so spoiled here. But that's also one of the reasons it's interesting to talk to you about this passion, because to purchase and to decide you want to own a catering company in a town as competitive and event oriented and entertaining oriented, like hospitality wise, as Charleston, that is no small decision. So you were passionate about it.
Yes.
You went to work for Hamby, correct?
I did. In 2011, Mrs. Hamby, our founder, who is the OG female entrepreneur, she started the business when she was in her 40s out of her home, and she built this amazing legacy that is Hamby Catering. Her great nephew, Wes Ellison, is the one that hired me as marketing director in early 2011. So there was 6 years where I was working for the company. And during that time, I was marketing director first, and I took Hamby through a big rebrand, which is when you and I met.
Yeah, I remember that.
And, I was trying to get to know all of the players in town and, the venues and the wedding planners, and just understanding where our shortcomings were, because we had a lot of them. It was really eye-opening just to see the opportunity and the trajectory of growth of where I wanted us to go. But being an impatient person, I wanted it to all happen like now.
Of course.
It took a lot of time. So from that marketing position, I advanced into the managing director of the company eventually. And after 6 years with the company, I was basically running the show, and Wes was behind the scenes. He's an amazing businessman, and he had so much trust and confidence in me as a leader. Wes was always pushing me to do more and step forward and lead. And he was the most amazing boss, and he's a friend first.
Yeah. That makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And we remain friends to this day. But I remember him coming to me one day. This was about 6 years in. And he said, "You love this, don't you?" And I said, "I sure do." And I said, "I know it's crazy, but I just love it." And he said, "You need to just buy this thing." And I was just like,
well, he teed you up.
And I thought, okay, that's hilarious. And, because I really had never thought about entrepreneurship and owning my own business. And I felt like I was a pretty decent leader at that point.
Yeah.
Little did I know that I knew absolutely nothing. But I called Dad and I said, "Hey, are you sitting down?" And they were living in England at the time. It was his last assignment. He had retirement looming in the near distance. And, he was trying to figure out what he was going to do next, because Dad is not the person to sit on the porch sipping coffee.
Sure.
He doesn't play golf. So, he was trying to figure out what his next after retirement gig was going to be. And I said, "How would you like to buy a catering company with your favorite daughter?" And I'm an only child, so that was part of the joke. But he said, "I don't know anything about catering." And I said, "Well, you know a lot about efficiency and running a business, and you know a lot about people." And long story short, over the course of a year, we did a lot of due diligence. And the great thing was that I already knew the inner workings of Hamby, and already knew most of the financials, because Wes was very open book throughout the 6 years that we worked together. And really, when we hit that 7-year mark, is when Dad and I bought the company. So October 25th of 2017 is when we signed on the dotted line, signed away our lives, and became co-owners of Hamby Catering. So it
So
is
great.
second generation family owned and operated catering company, just with a different family at the helm.
That's really special, and that's cool. Y'all thought of that and, how to position that. Even just the way you told that story, to position it as, we're still family.
Of course.
And what a unique way for one family to take it from another and honor that legacy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's been such an amazing journey to work with my dad. He's a driving force in my life, and he has always encouraged me to do more and, reach for the stars. And, I think in his mind, he always thought that I would end up working for Michelin and kind of step into his footsteps. But I feel like this is even better for us to take such an amazing company that Mrs. Hamby and her kids, Steve and Deborah, and then Wes, as part of the Hamby family, and respect and honor that legacy, but then also reinvent it in a way that keeps the company moving forward and growing, and just making it fresh and fun while also honoring the past.
That's really fantastic.
And, Dad was right. He doesn't know anything about catering, but does know one of the first things that he contributed to the company was putting a lot of process and procedure in place, like have key operating indicators. And our team is bonused based on objectives. And, qualitative and quantitative objectives that stream down from the company objectives that we set as an executive team at the beginning of the year. And then we have a snapshot of it every single week. So we know exactly where we are financially. And previously it was kind of like, I think we might be making money, but not sure.
So far, we can pay the bills this month.
Yes, exactly. So it honestly, the biggest lesson for me is over the past. So at this point, I've been an employee of Hamby and an owner for Hamby almost exactly the same amount of time. So I'm coming up on 14 years. So the most important thing is having great people. And it takes a lot of time to build a team and to get buy-in from those team members. Yeah. And to make sure that their passion is ignited and stoked and just really facilitated over the years.
You said something important. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you said being in food and bev, we know what turnover always is. Yes. It's never great. So being in food and bev and in a competitive market for it, it's never a super great turnover scale. And you also took over something that you were beginning to change as a new owner. Mm-hmm. So you just talked about really valuing and keeping your employees. Outside of food and bev now, it's really hard to minimize your turnover because it is just a employees market of I'm going to change for the next paycheck or, the next offer. How do you do that? What is your approach to that with your team to get that buy-in, get that commitment, and help them catch the fire you have?
Well, I'd like to say that I have it figured out, but I'm learning every day. For me, one of the biggest lessons is learning when to cut ties with people. And, you can love someone as a person. And I call it the fuzzy strawberry syndrome, where, if you have one bad strawberry in that bunch, it just that fuzz just kind of permeates the rest of the container of strawberries.
Sure.
And people are like that too. If you have someone that is on your team that, may be amazing client facing and just really killing it and doing amazing things for the company, but they're toxic to the of the company. And knowing in your gut, like, okay, this is going to be really hard, but it's time to make a different choice, and it's time to part ways. And those decisions are super, super, super hard. And we've had to make a few of them over the years.
Yeah.
And it is very cool to see the rest of the team respect that decision and rise to the occasion. And, I think another lesson for me is always taking the time to listen. And I think that there's a big reason that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Yeah. Because sometimes the best plan is just to shut your mouth. And, because at this point, the ideas that the Hamby team comes up with are often far greater than anything I could come up with on my own. And just asking questions regularly, both about professional challenges or opportunities, but also digging into personal life. Because, people talk about work-life balance, and I don't think that there's a balance. I think it's a pendulum that swings. And sometimes work takes over, and sometimes life and family take over. And just knowing that it's always going to be kind of a swinging pendulum, but also knowing that everything personal does impact what's happening at work. So taking the time to get to know your team on a personal level and knowing what challenges they're shouldering.
Yeah.
And if they'll let you in and share those, it really, it calls for a lot of grace and patience and just understanding that life is hard and everyone has their own burden of things that are going on. And so listening and asking a lot of questions. And when people come up with their own ideas and then they become company ideas, that creates a buy-in of, wow, I can really help and I'm making a difference. And it's not just top-down management. It's, us driving the ship together.
I love that.
Forward.
You have, you also are, a company like so many that has so many varying levels of socioeconomic background, and educational backgrounds, and just diverse skill sets to function, from your kitchen staff to your operation staff, to the staff that are dealing with clients during the events. So that's quite the gamut in diversity. And you talked about getting to know your team and to really care for them well. How do you manage getting to know your team, making it feel, warm and welcoming as an employment environment, but also holding people accountable? Because I find that with a lot of owners, that's a struggle as you grow, especially if you were this big and now you're this big. And so there've got to be some boundaries there. How do you manage that with your team?
That's a great question, Candace. I think for me, it has been very humbling to really get to know the team on all different levels, because, we've got our general manager, but then we also have our dishwashers and our maintenance crew. Yeah. And creating a warm environment where everybody feels comfortable is a daily daily work in progress.
I'm sure.
I find that kind of one of the best ways that we have all gotten to know each other is what we call parking lot parties, so we have 2 different buildings in West Ashley and a big parking lot in between. And we have our sales and operations warehouse in one building, and then we have our brick and mortar retail location and our kitchen in the other building. And having a parking lot party, and if there's some type of activity, like there was one time that we had a dunk tank in the parking lot, and
I love that.
Everybody is playing together, essentially. And, we're having some food and we're having some drinks and we're telling stories and giving each other a hard time, and just simple fun is the best way to bond. And the other best way to bond is what we refer to as trauma bonding. A lot of times that happens at an event where you're like, oh my gosh, this is not going according to plan. And, we're going to have to pivot and then pivot again. And, back of house, we're like, okay, how are we going to pull this off? And that group think that happens, and we're all in that stressful situation together. And then we're not performing brain surgery. So, we're serving food at fabulous events, and the bonding, the trauma bonding that happens, that we affectionately refer to it as trauma bonding, that those memories and then the simple fun, it creates that, it kind of breaks through a lot of the barriers of, the owner or a dishwasher or a food station attendant or the senior salesperson. That's what breaks down the barriers and creates the binds that allow for a greater level of trust to happen.
I love that you talk about being kind of in the weeds with your team in the heat of the moment. And I think sometimes as leaders, that can be scary, especially when you're growing something, to say alongside them, this isn't good, but make sure everybody's looking at problem solving, but just being okay in the moment that it's hard with your team and being available in that. So the joke of trauma bonding, that's really great. I will say events has long been, I don't know where it's ranked now, but it used to be like the 3rd most stressful job was working in event management. So I know when I was in it, that's what it was. So hats off to you. You've been doing it a while.
Yeah, I love it for some reason. It's, I think that you have to be wired, have maybe a few little wires loose.
Probably.
To really love it. And, I think there's, it goes back to, and I say this often to our team and also to our clients, we as Hamby Catering are part of, and also we have 45 years in business. So, we are truly part of the fabric of our clients' lives. So we're there when babies are born. We are there for birthdays and anniversaries and marriages and retirements and funerals. And we are there for the whole life cycle. And to be able to serve our clients in those highs and lows of life is just, it's a huge honor to be able to do that and to just see those relationships happen through the years and to be intentional with nurturing the relationships with clients.
Sure.
So that they also trust Hamby to take care of them in all of those super important moments in life.
I love the way you cast that vision of the relationship and just the legacy of being involved in someone for their whole life. And that's honestly a very biblical view of it as well, of, connecting it and making it. It's so much more than just making food and putting it out on a counter.
I will
100%.
be honest. There is not a baby shower I've thrown that Hamby has not been at. So
That's the way it should be.
mainly because no one should eat anything I cook, but it's fine.
It's interesting, a lot of, and I'll say this, when I started dating my husband, Rye, one of the first things that I said was, okay, I know that I'm the owner of Hamby Catering, but I am not on the culinary side. So I am not a good cook.
Oh, so great.
It was funny because when we started dating, people said, oh, you're dating the Hamby girl. You're going to get all this good food. She probably cooks every night. And that is not my forte. And Hamby would not stay in business very long if I was in charge of cooking the food. So
Personally, I think it's a brilliant business decision because you can stop by the market on the way home.
Exactly. And that was something that Wes, my old boss, came up with. We had clients that would have our ham biscuits or tea sandwiches or shrimp and grits at events, and they would call and say, hey, I'm having this little get together at the house, and could I come by and pick that up? And little by little, we would say yes. And it was kind of this strange building where you went down a hallway and peeked through what looked like a doctor's office window, and our manager would hand through some tea sandwiches and a beef tenderloin. And finally, Wes had the foresight to rip out some walls and ceiling and floor and create a beautiful space that is the market at Hamby. And in today's busy life, everyone is looking for convenience, whether it is for a family meal that you're serving one of the Hamby homemade lasagnas and pairing it with a garden salad and, maybe some wine or lemonade, sweet tea, and a great dessert. Or if you are entertaining and you're looking for a beautiful charcuterie board or a farm board, we try to make it easy for whatever food experience you're trying to create. And as you said, you can easily stop by the market at Hamby and do a little grab and go, or you can order in advance and get something pretty customized that doesn't necessarily require having our staff on site to cook and serve it.
No, it really is cool. And when you talk about how God uses every part of your life if you let him, I see so much of kind of the European influence of you and your dad when I walk into the market, because there's just always like a great wine pairing. I mean, there's just all kinds of cool things to really put together something that feels very special. And I see that when you're hearing you talk, I'm like, I totally see that European influence of entertaining when I walk in there.
Absolutely. It's, and I'll say this, and I think I mentioned it to you in a text or email. So I grew up Southern Baptist, and I went to church every Sunday and on Wednesday nights, and went to Vacation Bible School. And then as I went through my college years, religion and faith was not a central part of my life.
Yeah.
And, I've always been a believer, but it hasn't been a regular practice for me until the last several years. And I think I mentioned to you that this year is the first year that I have read through the entire Bible, which
is so great.
I never thought I would be able to do. But one of my girlfriends that was an 80 Pi with me at Clemson, she posted at the end of last year, I've been doing the Bible recap,
yeah.
Bible, and I'm going to do it again this year if anybody wants to join. And I was like, yes to that. And by carving out, I listen to it, either to and from work. But carving out that time to be really intentional with studying the word has been a game changer for me. And I am very much so an introverted person. And the way that I recharge is quiet time.
Yeah.
And, to be intentional with having that quiet time with God and just listening has changed the way that I see things. And, I have always been a little bit, I've lacked confidence in talking about my faith. And, this just studying the Bible has allowed me to gain a little bit more confidence to be able to talk about why my faith is important. And I've always known that, so I've always been able to kind of keep calm during the storms of life.
Sure.
And I never really understood why.
Yeah.
And, I know one of the things that you asked was my favorite verse. And I've got it framed and hanging in our stairwell. It's Psalm 46:10, and it's just, be still and know that I am God. And anytime anything hard happens at work or in life, I just pause. And I know that I am not in control. And, I can certainly make decisions of my own free will, but God's got this. And this is part of his plan. And I'm just a very, very small speck in the grand scheme of what he has planned. And that just gives me so much peace just to pause and be still and just know that he is God and he's got this. And, all I can do is listen and ask for guidance as I'm making decisions.
That's so funny. I was on a call with a president this morning that had like a big deal he was hoping was going to close. And in those moments, we're wired, right, as owners and leaders to like make it happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got to pull out all the stops. And he was listing everything they had done to work through this deal. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there are no more stops to pull out. And so we started talking about be still and know, because we all do that. We want to control the outcome, but sometimes the outcome changes for our protection too. We just don't see it. And it's so hard to trust when you are wired to drive, to make it happen.
I want to and problem solve always. And that's not always my best and highest use.
I love that you talked about being audible with your devotional time, because I think as leaders, we're taught a lot of times that you have to like sit in a corner with a blanket and for 2 hours and read. And sometimes the time is quietest in the car or so that's been a thing for me. It sounds like you've really leaned into that direction. How do you make sure throughout the day you're filling your mind even when you're busy with life-giving content?
So I'll tell you, the 20 or so minutes just studying the word has been a game changer for me.
That's awesome.
The other ways that I fill my cup spiritually is I love Seacoast Church, and I've been going to Seacoast for many, many years.
They're
and
fantastic.
It's drastically different from the Southern Baptist Church that I grew up in. I remember the time I went, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this band doing on the stage? Like, this is not church. So, if I'm not able to be there in person, the online option is amazing. And it's very bizarre how the message every week, I'm like, did they know? Did they know?
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. So that has been an amazing tool for me to continue learning. But other ways, my medicine is exercise. Like anytime I'm feeling like, ooh, I get a sweat in and it feels like everything levels out. Because if my body's not feeling good, that directly connects to the brain and the mind and my emotions. So I've learned over the years, particularly as a leader and as a wife and as a friend, a daughter, that I've got to take care, have that self-care. And being self-care is not, in fact, selfish.
So true.
So that is another way that I carve out time for myself to make sure that I'm right and well to lead.
How do you, I mean, having read for the first time this year, congratulations, by the way, because that's daunting until you get down the road with it. I know, that's huge. How has it changed your perspective on God and who God is?
You know, it's interesting that there's so many of the stories in the Bible that I heard as a child, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. But the thing for me that has shifted is just the power of his plan. And just, I mean, it blows my mind to even think about, like, wow, how I'm just in awe, honestly.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, I'm 42 and I feel like I'm just starting to scratch the surface of my relationship with God and my connection with my faith. And it's been a foundation that's there and it has always been present, but it's never been something that I've drawn from quite in the way that I am now. And I'm finding ways to feel comfortable talking about it. So honestly, when you invited me to be on the podcast, I was like, oh, am I the right person? But then I thought, you know, this is part of the plan. So say yes, and let's see what happens.
Well, you being on the podcast, there's someone in your shoes 15 years ago listening that is going, how bold can I be? And I'm still building this business. And will I lose clients if I openly share who I am authentically? And I remember being that person, like not wanting to segment people, but also knowing that there's conviction if I don't lead with it for me, of being like, I missed an opportunity. I want Holy Spirit to be that loud in my life, but I remember that. So it's really cool that you're being bold about it. And to know that you can walk into any organization at any stage of its life, and there's still new life to be given. And it can still become something that feels uniquely yours, but also honors the legacy that started it. It's a special story. So it's just, I was excited to have you on because I've watched that journey. You're right. I started my firm in 2005. So in 2011, when you came on came on the scene, I remember meeting you. And I remember when y'all were building the new tasting room in the market and all those things that you were trying to do to grow. And it was not a small feat. And I'm just in awe of what you and your dad have done and how you've protected the culture and the vision that was already there and just honored it while making it your own. That's a really unique thing to walk out. But it's also a testament to what faith forward leaders can do. Because if God is with us, he can build something around us.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And I feel like, you know, every day is just another building block in the foundation. And, you know, one of the things that has shifted over the past 3 years with the encouragement of our marketing team in the Black is for me personally to step forward as the face of Hamby. And I'll tell you, for the first few years of ownership, I was very, very careful, and had a lot of trepidation about, stepping on Mrs. Hamby's toes, because
Sure.
she created this amazing business, and I wanted to give her all of the accolades and the glory, and while doing that, I can also step forward and tell my story. And I think that has been one of the game changers for us as a company, is for me to be the face of Hamby and to be able to connect with people that are like me, and and those that are different. Because, I think for a long time, for the first few years of ownership, people still thought that Mrs. Hamby was in the back making tea sandwiches. So,
that is not the goal of owning a business, by the way, is to have to execute it and run it.
Yes, exactly. So, being able to, as I said before, honor the past, but also move forward into the future. And we've done that not only with the people that work at Hamby, and, we were talking about turnover earlier, and Hamby has been really lucky. I mean, my top salesperson, she's been with me for over 10 years. We've got a lot of people that have been with the company 8, 9, 5, 6. So we've got some
That's amazing
longevity with our team members, but, continually reinventing ourselves, and not necessarily doing away with our old heritage items, but reinventing them and making them fresh and new. So, you can take something as pedestrian as a deviled egg, but you can jazz it up with, a fun new garnish, or a little topping that makes it fun and fresh. So taking something traditional and, reinventing it in a pretty simple way. And then it appeals to a whole different audience that might have previously kind of snubbed their nose and think, ugh, I don't like that. So that's been a lot of fun to see the evolution of our menu. And then the growth of our business. We've talked about the market, our retail location, but also opening a new flagship venue, the Rutledge Room.
That's great.
The old Harmony Grill space downtown. We had been approached over the years about several different venue opportunities, and for various reasons, it wasn't right. And it was always my goal for Hamby to have an exclusive venue. And I'd been looking at places for the better part of a decade. And when I walked into what is now the Rutledge Room, I just knew, I was like, this is it.
Congratulations, by the way. That's huge. And that's a great space.
It's beautiful. And the location is so fabulous, so close to everything downtown. And it's been so much fun to watch it evolve over the past year and couple, 3 months since it's been open. And, what we envisioned it being has kind of shifted a little bit as get in there and, create these really cool events that, I thought, well, I would have never thought of that. Like, that's the perfect way to use the Rutledge Room. So it's been a fun project to watch grow and evolve, and, it's out there in the world becoming its own little entity, and, having new business opportunities like that, while also maintaining the foundation is tough. But it also makes it fun.
Candace, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really cool to hear your story of, honoring a legacy and building on it and making it yours, and that's possible. It's one thing for a founder to think about handing it off. It's another to think about the opportunity if you allow someone to do that. And your approach on the flip side of when you pick up the legacy, what do you do with it, and how do you leverage all the good parts of it, and honor God while you do it. I love to hear how your faith journey is just growing, and you're so at peace in such a crazy industry, and that's just a really cool perspective that you have. So thank you for your time and for your sharing today.
Well, thank you for having me, Candace. And I'm also noticing that even our initials are the same.
I did too. That's so funny.
C8 squared.
I love it. Everybody better look out. Look out, world. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks for coming on. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say thank you so much. I feel like just blessed by your friendship and, reconnection. And I would love to, I know we're seeing each other face to face now, but I feel like we need to see each other face to face and in real life.
We got to do some ladies who lunchtime.
Indeed. Do it.
We'll make that happen at some really good place in Charleston for sure.
I'm all in.
All right. Thanks, Candace.